Latisha's POV.
I moaned in agony, attempting to divert my attention from the icy surface that had frozen every inch of my body, including my fingertips. My breath was frigid, and it was unable to soothe my quivering body either. It had been several hours since I had been shuddering like this, but my senses refused to come back to my mind. It had taken me long, agonizing hours for my consciousness to finally reach the right places, but I was too dizzy to move an inch. Eventually, though, I was able to move my body and slump against a wall. As I shakily lifted my hand to brush off some hair that had adhered to my face, I discovered that my wrist was bound with a chilly substance. I opened my eyes and gave myself a quick glance. Seeing my limbs bound by shackles and chains pooling around me, along with a white cloth wrapped around my injured skin, though I doubt it did much to stop the bleeding, this made my heart sink to my stomach. I swallowed the lump that was in my parched throat as the harsh and chilly breeze swooped in through the open window, as the moonlight shines inside the cold room. It didn't take me long to realize the place was a little room in a cottage. Judging from the little light shining into the room, I could tell it hadn't been in use for quite some time and was probably an abandoned cottage in the woods. I closed my eyes and took a deep breath. My eyes began to well up with ruthless tears. The only thing that gave me some much-needed warmth. My mind reluctantly brought up Neith and her betrayal, and my heart quavered. Just how easily I had been fooled. I couldn't help but wonder why she did what she did. What did she hope to accomplish from this? Was I such a nuisance to her that she had wished for me to be gone? Had all we shared for nearly 2 years been nothing but an act? What was her reason for kidnapping me now and risking Darium finding out? Where exactly were we, and how long had it been since the abduction? Because, as far as I predicted, it must have been days. The conditions of my gown and injury told me enough. A creaking sound startled me out of my reverie as these thoughts raced through my mind, and I was able to see the door open easily because my eyes had adapted to the darkness. I followed a silhouette stepping inside the room. It was difficult to determine the identity of the person because of their black cloak. It was also impossible to tell if the person was a man or a woman due to the hood over their head. But once the person strode closer and halted under the glow of moonlight, that gave me a clue that it was a woman. My doubt was confirmed when she pulled down the hood and crouched to my level. When my eyes locked on the woman, my breath caught. Neith. She had a small, sly smile lingering on her lips as she eyeballed my limped form on the cold ground. Her eyes landed on my face as her brows shot up in laughter. Her eyes lingered on my chapped lips, which I was sure were already going blue. Undoubtedly, my eyes drooped and my shoulders hunched, exacerbating Neith's delight at my appearance of weakness. Latisha, to say I am happy with your new look would be an understatement. Neith smirks, her eyes darting up and down my thin figure with a hint of taunt. Her gaze swept over my unkempt appearance once more, and I was able to see the disgusted and hateful expression. They were so noticeable that I had questioned how much self-control she had to exercise to hide them. With her eyes locked with mine, Neith leaned in closer and brushed off the strand of hair. Did you seriously think you could just whiz right in and take what's mine? You think you have the right to ruin everything I had worked so hard for, ah? Her mouth tensed, and her eyes swiftly changed from sardonic to furious. She was enraged beyond measure, and this made me shrink, fearing what else she could do. She moved up and traced the curve of my neck before tightly holding my chin between her fingers. I let out a hiss as the pain surged from the area. She was not sparing me from so much pain that I had to squeeze my eyes and writhe as her grip grew even tighter. I half opened my eyes, startled when Neith grabbed the back of my head with her other hand and yanked my face to hers. The hatred and accusations that were floating in the eyes of someone I once thought of as a friend, someone who was very dear to me, made my eyes well up with tears. Someone I never imagined would betray or harm me in this manner. Latisha, this is all your fault. With bitter tears welling up in her eyes, she spat. Why did you have to make me go this far? Why couldn't you just die the first time? But no, you just had to cause a rift between Darium and me. With a trembling breath, she gritted her teeth and tried to contain the tears that were about to spill. I had everything so perfectly planned out. Tegan was supposed to be the villain in this story, and I was supposed to be the hero, the one to help the kingdom and Darium recover from the loss of their queen. But you are one fucking bitch to kill! The heavens! She screeches out. If you had died when you were supposed to, everything would have been back to normal. She was so full of accusations that I almost started to think that I was the one who had wronged her. How easily you stole my moments of happiness. Just how easy it was for you to ruin me, you wretched bitch. I let out a cry of agony as she gnashed and stood on her knees, holding my hair in a fist hold. Anyway, I stammer out, my body losing strength by the moment due to the amount of blood I had lost. Shut up! Don't you say a word. She squeezed the crook of my neck. First, you took away Darium's attention, making yourself the center of it all. She tugged on my hair harder. Then you took over the people's love and care. But did you stop there, Letitia? Neith suddenly leaped for my face, slapping me hard on the cheek with her hand. My face flew to the other side. My icy cheek hurt more with every hit. You dared to disgrace the kingdom by designating a bastard as the heir apparent. A fucking Hades bastard. How in the world could my Darium have ever considered going so low as to have a child with someone like you? It's truly beneath me. She slapped me again, harder than the first time, and I was certain the impact of her hands could be seen on my cheeks. I sensed something seeping out of my nose this time. I could tell it was blood without having to wipe away the icy substance. But I must applaud you. Letitia, you truly did well this time by causing your own demise. She gripped my jaw and dug her nails into my cheeks. I weakly watched her threat-laced expressions. You just need to hold on for a few days, and I will so gladly do the honor of putting you out of your misery. With intense animosity, she shot a quick glance at me before pulling her face away. I sank her words with wide eyes and flinched when the door slammed shut. Tears roamed down my face as I realized what was coming for me. The day was getting brighter. The room was filled with shades of early light that fell on my barely conscious form. My entire face was dangerously swollen, and my eye sockets were heavily closed while I lay there on the floor. I had nothing on my mind as I strained to look out the window. My lower body was nearly devoid of feeling, and I could sense my soul slowly vanishing from my body. It had been 4 days since I last ate something, not precisely ate, but tried to. It was stale bread and some porridge soup. The food was so flavorless that I ended up puking it all up. I lay on the floor, barely able to move, my tears uncontrollably flowing as I pondered whether this was the end. Had Darium and the twins not been in my life, I never would have feared death. I wouldn't have been bothered had it been 2 years ago and things hadn't been different. I wouldn't be so scared that I wouldn't get to grow old with Darium as we share every beautiful moment of the twins. I blinked at the rising sun before hearing the creaking sound of the door. Someone was here. The footsteps crept in as I shakily closed my eyes. I could tell it belonged to a man because of how heavy they were. The moment that foot shaded my face from the sun, my eyes opened. With feeble effort, I lifted my gaze to attempt to catch a glimpse of the man's face, but my vision was blacking out. I continuously blinked to stay alert. Squatting, the man placed a steel tray against my chest. My nose was assaulted by the scent of food, but I was too dizzy to look at him, and he seemed to notice. Despite my extreme hunger, I lacked the strength to use the spoon or even help myself up. With a hand snatched from under my back, the man in the room pushed me up against the wall and I slumped, staring up at him. The moment I saw Kaylin's well-known face, I was too weak to even react. How long had he been working for her? Had they been in cohort right from the beginning? Had she placed him in my life as my bodyguard in the beginning to monitor my every move? Or was she holding something against Kaylin? I just wasn't sure. Kaylin reached for the spoon and lifted it to my lips. I looked from him to the spoon and back again. Given that he was working with Neith, I was not sure if it was appropriate for me to take a bite, but I was now absolutely starving to death. My eyes filled with helpless tears, and Kaylin scooted closer, frowning. You are far too weak. You need to eat. I just stared at him, blankly, not sure what to think as he said it, his voice sounding sincere. There were no emotions, no resentment from him. He extended the spoon as I unwillingly let it slide through my lips and took the bite. I chewed it and swallowed while Kaylin followed my movement, spooning another bite. At this point, the taste of meat seemed like a blessing. He was feeding me chicken soup. How is this possible? Even after taking only one bite, the taste made my mouth water. I looked at Kalen bewilderedly as he brought the spoon to my lips. Was it okay to trust him, or was he just like Neith, putting on an act? Kalen waited for a moment, but when I didn't open my mouth, he signed before speaking. You need to eat, Queen Sviatoslavic. At this rate, you might end up dying, which honestly, I wish for you not to. He said it sincerely, confusing me even more. I stared at the food for a second before quietly taking another bite. I could not resist asking him after I had almost finished the bowl. Why are you doing this? Why are you working for Neith? Grinning miserably, Kalen sighed and looked down at the bowl as he passed the spoon. I apologize, he said, appearing almost defeated as he lowered his head. I ought to have stopped it when I had the chance. I should not have allowed it to get this far. I had been so desperate to help her, especially when she came to me looking dejected. There was no way I could ever turn her down, he said resentfully, as if his sincere confession would repair the damage. Even right now, I know this is wrong, betraying you and King Sviatoslavic, but she matters more. Okay, what in the heavens? Was I hearing well, or was he implying something was going on between him and Neith? It can't be what I think, right? What do you mean? Why does helping her matters more? My voice was barely a whisper when I asked in confusion, and even that was straining too much. My chest was feeling empty and shallow, and Kalen was not making things any better at the moment. Because I'm stupidly in love with her. I always have been and always will be. I was left staring at him in disbelief as he blurted out almost immediately. Kalen, having realized what he had said and taking in the look in my eye, had the tip of his ears picking up the heat. He tried to blink away the embarrassment. He didn't say anything further and instead glanced down, scooping up another bite, before bringing it up to my lips. I never intended to hurt you and wish for you never to forgive me for this, and as much as I am remorseful for everything, I can't turn my back on her. With feeble movements, I lifted my lashes and gave him a vile look. My hands were throbbing to slap him, but I knew I could not do it. I ignored Kalen's worried expression and turned my own face away, the spoon still raised to my lips. You need to eat, you've lost a lot of blood, and as much as I tried to treat your injury as best as I could, I'm not an expert in it. He states pleadingly, and just then, the already slightly open door was parted open, bringing out an enigmatic. Neith enters quickly, shrouded in a black cloak. Her previous visit was 4 days prior, so this was her second time seeing me. With a gentle expression on his face, Kalen turned away from me and raised himself to his feet, turning to look at her. Neithotep. He stepped ahead. She spared him a glance before glaring at me. What do you think you are doing? She fisted her hands and hissed menacingly. Neith's bloodshot eyes flashed at Kalen as he took a step forward. Relax, I was only feeding her. Neith became enraged and ground her teeth as he calmly explained, she needs something tangible in her stomach, or she might not make it by tomorrow evening. She stepped ahead and fisted on his robe, catching Kalen off guard. I don't remember asking you to do so. Did I? She asked with a twitching jaw. Kalen frowned in disbelief. She is too weak, Neithotep, and most likely has a fever. Her injury is untreated, and we aren't certain if it is infected or not. The least we can do is give her something tangible to eat than hard breads, he reasoned indicatively, and Neith rolled her eyes. And what makes you think I give two fucks about her health or not? She taunted, loud enough for me to hear. I think you need a reality check, Kalen. I couldn't care if she dies or not. It will save me the effort to do it myself. What exactly is the plan, Neithotep? Kalen asks, looking worriedly at her. He walked over to where she stood, cupping her cheeks warmly, but before they could reach her face, Neith stepped back and leveled him with a smug smile on her face. She raised her brow along her chin. It's none of your concern. Darium and his men would soon catch up with us. He mumbled, shaking his head. You know your brother, he won't go easy on us. The smile on Neith's face widened, she tilted her head and shrugged. Everyone who knows about my involvement should be dead. She simply said that, putting distance between them. Her gaze darted to me, who was passively listening to the discussion but not at all inclined to participate. mainly because I didn't have enough energy to argue. With a look of pure satisfaction on her face, Neetha's eyes skimmed over my frame, taking in how bad I had gotten since she had last seen me. Do you now regard her as a woman? Have you so suddenly developed some affection for her? If so, I will give you permission to have as much fun as you want with her. She can be your little whore, just for today. Kill her afterwards. Neith batted her brows in my direction before glancing back at Kaylin, and my heart raced at her words. He wasn't going to do what she had requested of him, would he? I was fearful of the thought of it being so, as he seemed to follow every word she said. I gradually turned to look at Kaylin. His eyes seemed to be burning with rage, and his jaw was clenched. Are you out of your mind, Neithotep? He screamed in rage. You know for a fact my feelings for you, so why would you ask that of me? Neith raised her brows in mockery, a wide grin on her face, before twitching her jaw. Then start by showing damn respect, knowing your place, or having forgotten your lower status. I am the Princess of Nisha, and I would be damned if I tolerated you calling me by my name one more time. She raised her finger and pointed it at him. Her words appeared to have shocked Kaylin, and I doubt he even noticed the tears welling up in his eyes. A brief period of quietness enveloped the space, followed by the distant sound of neighing. I told you it wouldn't be long before they caught up with us, Kaylin groans. What are we going to do now? Neith only sighed in frustration and ignored him as she bent a little and clutched my arm while Kaylin watched her, baffled. What do you think you are doing? He looked at her. Taking her with me, of course. She prodded my arm to get me to stand, and I did so. My legs felt numb from too much sitting. She is not in the condition to walk. He put a hand on Neetha's grip. Let's beg your brother, I'm sure he will let you live. You're his only sister after all. Neith hissed and set him with a glare. Let go of me, and don't ever tell me what to do. She lashed back, making me inwardly flinch. Let go of her, Neithotep, Kaylin says again. We can leave her here. If you don't wish to seek the mercy of your brother, we can always run away, far from here, where he won't find us. Come on, Neithotep. Neith released my limp body, and I collapsed onto the ground. You're right, she says, moving closer to him till they were breath away, and she cups his cheek almost so gently, her fingers caressing his skin, moving down to his lips, and her thumbs swiped across it, their eyes never once wavering from each other. She leans in a little, tugging on his lips with her teeth before leaning in to kiss him, and later she was quick to respond while I sat here in my misery watching them make out. My eyes quickly took on a terrified expression, and I opened my mouth to issue a warning, but it was too late as Kaylin's breath caught and the knife pricked his back. His mouth parted open as his breath was stifled. I watched him get stabbed, tears filling my eyes. Kaylin looked helpless at that moment as Neith pulled out the knife and stabbed him again, making me yell for him. He slumped against the wall. The deep wounds were leaking hot, fresh blood. He coughed, his breathing seemed to be ragged, and his eyes began to give up on him. His eyes slowly closed of their own volition, a lone tear falling from them. With the knife raised, Neith slashed her left hand and cheek, letting the blood flow out before turning back to face me. She ignored the fact that I was a sobbing mess and pulled me to my feet. Your turn. Neith was pulling my body by the chain that was around my hand, making my legs work against their fatigue. My voice was low and my throat was tight, but I was too numb to notice the pain around my wrist when all of my attention was on sobbing and pleading with Neith to save Kaylin. My thoughts were racing as his rigid gaze remained fixed on me. I did not think about myself at all I was thinking about was the dying man, who was probably going to be taking his final breath in that tiny, chilly room. The sound of hoofs neighing and feet striking the ground informed us that Darium and his men were not far from the front of the cottage. Neith paused, her eyes darting around as if she was lost in thought, and then she pulled me to her feet and pressed her palm to my lips, breathing shakenly against my skin. The sound of the soldiers stumbling outside the cottage made my heart hurt. If only I had the strength to scream, instead of being so desperately weak that I was gasping for air. Neith shot me a sharp look, one that was met with a scared one that caused her to roll her eyes, and I saw the ball of frustration that tended to pool in her. She grabbed onto the chain with her free hand and gave me a scowl. There is no way you would ever make it past tonight, let's end things here. If you think so much as to let out a scream, I won't hesitate to have the twins follow you into the afterlife. And don't think for a second that they are safe. There has been a command to have them killed if I fail to return. She threatened in a dark tone, and I sobbed out, the fear taking over my body. What's it going to be, Letitia? Your life for the twins? I nodded frantically, falling to my knees as I continued to cry. Please spare the twins. I beg of you. I managed to whisper in the midst of my tears. They have done you no wrong. All you have to do is do as I say, and I won't have to hurt them. She crunches down to my level, a sly, dark smirk on her face. Her hands shoot up to undo the chain on my hands, letting them fall by my side, before raising up to her feet and helping me up as well. She looked almost as horrible as I did, wiping the blood from her hand on her dress and letting it drip down to her neck. She placed my arm around her shoulder while her arm wrapped around my waist, using her body as a support to lift my limp body up, and she began dragging my body out of the cottage. Neith continued to drag my body in the most gentle way possible, acting as though she cared and putting on a fake act that only she could pull off, and I could not help but hope Darium would not fall for it as we made our way back into the woods, following the sound of guards running around. Your Majesty. A shout from my left side had us turning towards it, spotting a couple of guards. We have found Her Highness the Queen. The man who yelled before yells again. The soldiers surround us in a circle as they start to arrive from all around the wood. Their sword pointed at us, and I wasn't sure why. All I could do was hope that Neith's act would be exposed. Breathing tremblingly, I attempted to resist the urge to go to sleep, fearing that I might not wake up again if I did lose consciousness. The guards in front of us parted ways as Darium and Nico made their way towards us. My breath began to quiver when I watched his footsteps halt for a second. When his eyes settled on me, I could see the pain welling up in them, and I was almost certain I saw a hint of tears as well.
Third person's POV.
They had scarcely taken a break for days as they searched for the princess and the queen. There were numbers of times Darium had prayed for his truth about his sister to be anything but real. However, as the days went by, he grew increasingly terrified of what she might have done to Letitia. He had been on the edge of losing it, afraid he might never see her again, when he heard his guards calling from the other side after they had found both Letitia and Neith. His entire world seemed to have stopped when he saw her. After a minute, he noticed that her lips were blue and her complexion was pale. She resembled a living corpse. What had Neith done to her? He had truly experienced terror overload for the first time in his life, and helplessness for the second. They had stabbed him in the most hurtful way. His very soul, they harmed the love of his life. Darium, Nico. I'm so glad you found us. Neith screeches out, causing his attention to shift from Letitia to her. He takes in her bleeding face as well as left shoulder and would have fell for her tricks had he not been aware of it all. How blinded had they been that they didn't realize her betrayer sooner? He ought to have known that her apparent sudden change of heart and concern for Letitia was a facade, especially in light of her disapproval of his marriage. He should have questioned it, right from the very first time Letitia had been poisoned, but he had been so blinded by his trust in her that they had never suspected she would commit such atrocities. She was his sister, after all. Someone he had known his whole life. How could she betray him and hurt him in the worst way possible? It had all been Kalen. He had been the one to plot it all. Letitia and I had only managed to escape. Darium, you have no idea how happy. Her words were cut off when she took in the murderous look on his face, and she took a step back. Neith's hold on Letitia tightened, and she shifted from her brother to her husband, taking in the sad, painful look on his face. This was more than enough to let her know that they were aware of the truth. They were all aware of everything, and the anger grew in her. It was all her fault. It was all Letitia's fault. She had managed to ruin everything for her. She gripped a hold of Letitia's shoulder, taking a step back, and the guards followed suit, enclosing in on her. Placing a knife on the crook of Letitia's neck, she said, "Get away from me, or I won't hesitate to slit her throat." She shouted, watching the soldiers grip their swords tightly. Instinctively, Darium stepped ahead, and Neith nipped Letitia's skin, making it bleed a little. This caused Darium to halt. "Don't even think of coming closer or she dies." She threatened him, and he took her words seriously. Letitia at this point where she was struggling to breathe, her legs were giving out. Was it tears that were filling his eyes? Fine. He stepped back. I won't, Neith. Just don't hurt her any more than you already have. He said in a persuasive tone that there was a ray of fear floating in those blue and amber orbs. This made Neith pissed even more, seeing how her brother cowered in front of her all because of the woman in her hold. She hated it so much. Tell your men to make a path for me to leave, she yelled. Darium couldn't do anything other than compile. With an agitated look on his face, he half-heartedly nodded, and the soldiers withdrew their swords. She retreated back, still holding onto her hostage. At this point, Nico was having trouble breathing. He was getting goosebumps all over his body as he continued to look at the woman he had given his all for, the one he loved with all of his being, and saw her fall so quickly from the elegant person he had known her to be. He was a man who revered the earth she trod and was conflicted by all that had happened since they had come to Hyattia. Letitia, on the other hand, kept her gaze on the man she loved more than life itself. She could not think at all at this point. Her eyes were staring blankly at his face as if it was her last time seeing him and she would not be around to spend another day with him. Darium cracked even more when she shot him a sad smile, reminding him how much he had let her down, failed to protect her and keep her out of harm's way. You have what you want, Neith. Let her go. Darium states as calmly as he could muster, yet there was no way Neith would ever buy into his act. She knew her brother far too well to know that if she lets go of Letitia, he would hunt her down, even if it meant the end of the world. She scoffed at this. Give this false hope to someone who does not know you. I am not a fool. Neith gritted and stepped toward the opened path, taking Letitia along. Darium watched as she dragged her, and he felt his heart skyrocket, his soul leaving his body with every step she took, as well as the calming demeanor he had tried so hard to maintain. Stop this now, Neith. Doing this just aggravates your crime even more. He warned her with eyes that were now becoming bloodshot and jaw set in utter abomination. He was losing his ability to mask his frustration. It wasn't easy for him to become this lenient and flexible. Neith chuckled painfully. She cocked her head to the right and painfully watching him. I'm doing this for you, why can't you see that? You are better off without her in your life, you just don't know it yet because she has managed to charm you with a seductive act. But once she's gone, you will realize how right I am. She said it with conviction, and this made Darium far more enraged and frustrated than this helplessness was causing. His mind was screaming at him, holding him responsible for not finding out the truth much sooner. It's not fair, Darium, she said in abhorrence. It is not fair that you will choose her over me. That you are ready to give your all just to save her, even if it means hurting me. She digs her nails into the flesh of Letitia's neck, causing the later features to crumple up. Darium was this close to pouncing at her and ripping off her hand before strangling her to death with his bare hands. His gaze was stuck on Neith's hand. He watched her before his eyes went behind her for a split second. Neith gulped while becoming blinded by hatred. She gave a smirk, straightening the knife. Hate me all you want, but I will continue to do what is right for the kingdom. She raised the knife, ready to slash through Letitia, when a hand grabbed her wrist, twisting it quickly. Her steps faltered and the knife dropped in an instant. She was yanked away from Letitia by a hand on her neck before she could even blink, but Darium was fast to intervene and catch her before Letitia could hit the ground. Squeezing her under his arm, Neith was holding onto Nico's grasp. No! Let go of me! Nico struck Neith's head with the sword pommel as she fought with all of her remaining strength, knocking her out cold. Too tired to carry her own weight, Letitia felt overwhelmed. The floor was supposed to embrace her as her knees gave way and she knew she was going to fall, but instead a warm embrace wrapped around her saved her. She didn't need to look to know who it belonged to. She freely let herself be in his embrace. Breathe, my love. Keep on breathing for me. Darium firmly pulled her head to his chest with his other hand holding her by the waist. She took a deep breath against his chest, feeling something warm seeping from his eyes. She then placed her hand on his chest, his chin rested on her damp hair. He lifted her hand to his mouth and planted a cool kiss on her knuckles. Her limbs were as cold as ice, but her forehead, neck, and back were burning with a fever. She let out a sigh when the cold, merciless wind stopped punishing her as he swiftly wrapped his cape around her and held her in his arms. Nico watched him take her somewhere. He averted his gaze and commanded the soldiers to march back to the palace. Letitia was shuddering in his hold as he helped her up the horse. He needed to get her back to Hyattia Castle and have a healer attend to her. His eyes couldn't hold back from momentarily glancing at her. He read her face. Her eyes and mouth were barely open. Her lips were icy white, her hair was drenched in cold water, and she looked malnourished. His heart bore a jolt of pain watching her like this. Kaylin, stabbed, room, Letitia stuttered out without looking at him. Darium listened to her but said nothing in response. She looked at him. Please? He closed his eyes. Why? Not after having betrayed you and was working hand in hand with Neith, Darium grumbled back, keeping his tone in check. He tried to save me. Please, he sighed out and commanded his guard to look for him. Letitia breathed out in relief and inwardly prayed that he was alive. She would be broken to see him dead. Darium wrapped his arms safely around her. Her ears were plugged against his heart. She could still hear the erratic beats even though he was strapped in armor, and she started to lose consciousness while hoping this was not the end.